Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Xony, and today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go. Today's story is about instant karma. OP found out his wife had been cheating on him, and when he confronted her about it, she had zero remorse whatsoever and even laughed about it. Now, let's get into today's stories. Hey guys, I've been on here the last few days reading these horror stories. It's good to know I'm not alone. My situation is a bit unusual. About 4.5 months ago, I found out my wife was having an affair. It wasn't hard to uncover, seeing as she was terrible at hiding it. When I confronted her, we talked for 4 hours, and I made her tell me every detail. It took some coaxing, but after about 20 minutes, she started talking. She said some crazy stuff to me that night, and the worst part about it was the way she said them all nonchalant, like she was chatting with a girlfriend at a coffee shop. One example is when we talked about the sex. I asked her if it was the same as what we do, or if it was different. In my mind, I was thinking of different positions. What she said was like a dagger in my chest. She said it was different because it was passionate. I told her, "You're saying in the 10 years we've been together, we haven't had passionate sex?" And her response was maybe on our honeymoon. The worst part was how she said it casual as can be. So I thought, this girl is narcissist. But I'm doubtful because narcissists are smart and cunning. This is how I found out. The first night, she had a condom sticking out of her wallet in the living room. The next night, I checked her laptop and she didn't realize it was connected to her phone. Maybe you guys can explain this one to me, because to this day, I still don't get what she did. I went through her photos and she had screenshotted her entire conversation with this guy and deleted it one by one. It was all in her deleted files. Maybe you can tell me what a screen recording is. It's only for iPhones. Some of the screenshots she took had timestamps at the bottom. I made her text him that night and tell him to not contact her again. The next morning, she told me he had texted her, which I appreciated. If he was smart, he would have left it alone. But his response was, "Are you okay?" Right then from that response, I knew that Weasel would keep trying. I told her as much. I forgot to mention that when I confronted her, I told her that we were done, because that's the one thing I couldn't forgive. And I told her, for our daughter's sake, that she could stay there until she found a place. A sleepless week went by, and the only thing I noticed was that she disconnected her phone from her laptop. No biggie. She went out for a birthday party that weekend, and she did go where she said she did because I checked the bank account. However, she came home drunk. She maybe has a drink twice a year, went into the bathroom for half an hour, then went to bed without even saying a word. First red flag of the night. A half hour later, I went into the garage and her car wasn't there. I thought, sure, she had too much to drink. But at that point my gut was screaming at me. So I found her Snapchat password and logged in on my phone. And sure enough, the first person at the top of her recents was the guy she had an affair with. By the way, she told me he had social media. All I saw was that the last thing he said was "show me." So while I was in her account, I changed it from delete instantly to save for 24 hours. That's going to be important later. At that point, it was 4:00 a.m. So I waited until I couldn't take it anymore and woke her up at 7:00, asking where her car was. I told her to call one of her girlfriends to pick her up and get her a car. And I walked downstairs. I was still logged into her account on my phone, and in the 5 seconds it took me to walk downstairs and open my phone, she snapped him good morning with a nude picture. The worst part about that was the picture was from our wedding night. Anyway, she left to get her car, and I was sitting there thinking, how could she tear my heart out twice in 1 week? She came back, and I told her that we needed to talk. Her response was, "Oh, this again." I asked her if she had texted him last night, and she denied it on a technicality. So I asked if she had snapped him, which she also denied. So in my anger, I rolled my shirt up and did the pose she did and said, "Does good morning ring a bell?" Her eyes lit up in immediate anger and she started yelling and hitting me. Relax, guys. My 2-year-old hits harder. I told her I was leaving for a few days and for her to pack her stuff up. As I was walking out the door, she asked when I would be back, and I was confused because I couldn't have been any clearer. She asked if I was coming back that day, and I kid you not, because I'm supposed to go to a party later today. I looked her in the eye and said, "There's truly something wrong with your head," and I left. I'm getting to it, guys. I promise. A few days went by. My daughter kept calling out for mommy, and it broke my heart. So I caved and let her back in. She deleted her entire Snapchat when she came back and promised to wait until we were divorced. A few more days went by on that following weekend, and she was supposed to go to some food festival with her girlfriend that Sunday. Saturday night, my gut started screaming again. So while she was giving our daughter a bath the only time her phone is not in her hand, I went to open it and saw that she had changed the passcode. The first thing that popped up in my head was our daughter's birthday. It opened on the first try, and sure enough, she was once again talking to that guy on Snapchat, and they were talking about meeting up at the food festival. I started getting a gut feeling when I got a notification earlier that day that she was back on Snapchat. I went on a walk until our daughter went to sleep. I came back home with her, completely unaware that I had seen her phone. I came up with a plan to mess with her on my walk, knowing exactly how it was going to play out. When I got back, I asked politely to see her phone because I had a feeling she willingly showed me her phone. 2 days before that, she said, "Fine," downstairs, and then all I heard was a loud no, and she locked herself in the bathroom. I calmly walked down there and knocked, asking if everything was okay. She responded, "I can't believe you don't trust me. Yada, yada." She opened the door after a few minutes and gave me her phone. Long story short, I gave her 10 minutes to get out. Here's the kicker. 2 months later, I got a call from my dad saying that she was in the hospital with a giant brain tumor. I went to visit because as much as I hate her, she is my child's mother and it was the right thing to do. The whole drive there, I was thinking, well, that explains her insane behavior for the last couple of months. I told her that, and she was in complete denial. They took it out the next day. 2 weeks later, the test results came back. They were really bad. She had maybe 18 months. To this day, she is in complete denial about it. I was going to be supportive, but when I put her phone away at the hospital, I found an empty bottle of lube in her purse. It's important because one of the last things I said to her when I finally kicked her out was, "If you ever loved me at all in the 10 years we've been together, just start telling me the truth and wait until we're divorced." So after that, I cut all contact with her. How can I talk to someone who is so detached from reality? Everyone has been telling me to forgive her because it was a tumor. But that's bull. She knew what she was doing. There's a lot more details to this story. But I've rambled on long enough. Let me know if you want more details, and I'll post the rest on another day. Thanks for the help, guys. In today's second story, Uppy's wife cheated on him with her boss and is now begging for mercy after her entire life has been wrecked. Now let's get into story. Hi y'all. I really appreciate this community and found it very helpful throughout this process. So I'd like to share a truncated version of my story. My ex-wife and I had been together for about 6 years before we got married in June of 2021. Getting married during a pandemic wasn't easy, but we had a wonderful wedding and it was one of the happiest days of my life. Fast forward a few months later, and my wife became a completely different person. She opted to go to the office regularly while I continued to work from home. We both worked from home throughout the pandemic. She worked for a big firm, so the long hours seemed to be par for the course, but she no longer wanted to spend quality time with me on the weekends. She spent a lot of time with her horse and began to downplay my achievements, claiming I was no longer a gadgeter, even though I was doing very well at work. People say that the first year of marriage can be hard, so I started taking my wife on regular date nights to reinvigorate our relationship. But she remained withdrawn and judgmental, which was a big blow to my self-esteem. I racked my brain thinking of what I might have done to make her act and feel this way, but I couldn't come up with anything plausible. So I started to lose sleep thinking I was possibly losing my wife to someone else. These were the worst months of my life because I couldn't believe you could lose the person you married so shortly after tying a knot. So I convinced myself it was the pressure of her job that was causing her to act this way, and I opted to suppress the negative thoughts to avoid exacerbating the issues we were having. She was actually gaslighting me the whole time, and I just didn't know it. Discovery Day. I organized a romantic weekend by the beach despite my suspicions in order to try and revive what we had prior to our marriage. I thought this would renew our bond, but she became more brazen with her disdain. I told her I loved her on our way to dinner, and she didn't reciprocate. Later that evening, she had me take a not suitable for work photo of her in a bubble bath. And when I mentioned that it was a bit too scandalous for social media, she responded, "That's not what I'm using it for." We have been intimate throughout our marriage, but she refused to be intimate with me on this trip. That's when I finally confronted her on my suspicions and demanded she be honest with me. She denied everything for a while, but I convinced her I had proof I didn't, and she finally confessed. She admitted to sleeping with her boss on numerous occasions for months and that he was pressuring her to leave me. I went through a panic attack which I had never experienced before, and after finally calming down, I realized what a fool she was for falling for his lies. I told her I was going to inform his wife, and she responded, "She'll find out, but you won't be the one to tell her." That's when I knew my ex-wife had convinced herself she was going to run away with her boss. It was sick and a little evil, and I realized that my ex-wife was never who I married. The real her was this manipulative and vile stranger. She changed my flight that night, sent me to my parents' house, and told me she would mail me some boxes of my clothes. I contacted the boss's wife via social media as soon as I got to the airport, and that's when all hell broke loose. Long story short, the boss never planned on leaving his family, and in order to try and save his marriage, he distanced himself from my ex-wife as quickly as possible. Apparently, HR had to get involved, and my ex-wife quickly gained a reputation around her office. She cried and pleaded with me to take her back, but I told her she had made the decision, and I was just completing her plan. Aftermath success is the best revenge. Life has been good now that the dust has settled. I live near some of my closest friends, met a wonderful woman, and found a great job in California. I'm learning to love myself again, and have realized that my ex-wife's opinion of me during our marriage is not a reflection of who I am or my inherent value. I'm truly happier without her, and while I occasionally feel disheartened by what transpired, I feel blessed that this truth came to light before we had kids.